It's amazing how much one accident can do. Once in peak condition, a prime example of the modern machine, flying down the rails with the wind brushing past, the excitement of being able to move faster and more efficiently than any other form of transportation. The epitome of unstoppable. Now, here I am, in excruciating pain as one of my siblings shunts my battered and busted frame into the shed, face forward as he stares me down with a sorry frown planted on his face. But it is also a disappointed frown. No sympathy or guilt on his face. I do not feel it is unwarranted. I have done this to myself. But he is still my sibling. We are of the same maker. We care for each other. No engine gets left behind. Even one who makes a mistake as foolish as mine. These thoughts are interrupted as my cracked wheels continue to slowly run along the iron girders, jolting erratically, and then that brief moment of ignorance fades into self-hate once more. My pistons still have excess steam leaking out, emitting with a dull whistling sound as my energy continues to dwindle. The steam swirls outwards and bounces off the walls of the shed, straight back into my face. The steam swirls outwards and bounces off the walls of the shed, straight back into my face. I only really feel a tickle as I inhale the steam, but I instead give out a loud audible cough as I wheeze hoarsely, finally catching my breath. My funnel tilted to my left, dented and chipped. The loose pinion of my undercarriage drags along the sleepers, prolonging the journey towards what I assume is my final resting place. This seemingly brief journey is one I never want to end. I knew some kind of consequence was waiting for me, since they said they had insufficient funds for an overhaul. They'll most likely scrap me. When they find the time. I use this time to reflect, with the embarrassment of my foolishness fully waved across my mind. I look at the blinding light emitted from the sun, on the threshold of the setting over the mountain, the sky darkening ever so slightly. The grass of the nearby trackbed swaying wistfully in the gentle July breeze. Such simple pleasures, that I would have more opportunities to savor, if only I had more time. But no, I have missed my chance to make the most of it. Now it is a symbolic reminder that my time is seemingly about to come to pass. I feel the buffers at the shed's end bash against mine as my shunter pulls back. I see his eyes still attached to me as his face shrinks the further he moves away from me. His brows are furrowed and his pupils centered. I immediately knew that I was in the crosshairs of his vision. The weight of the stare was like 1,000 crushing boulders which I was unable to avoid. Now that I'm here, now what? I wake up the next morning, relaxed with a newfound perkiness. I thought more about my situation in my sleep, and I concluded that yesterday I was being well over dramatic. It's amusing to think how easy it is to forget the place that I'm in, and who I'm surrounded by, my loving siblings and a manager who is the opposite of cruel. It would be too undignified for me to meet my end in the way of the smelting pot. That is simply the cruelest fate imaginable. Besides, I made one mistake, one tiny mistake that just happens to bring me out of commission for a good while. But it's not like I'm in pieces. Well, at least I don't feel it. Yes, I was sore after the accident, but I think my pride was hurt more than, well, that and my scratched face. I saw my colleagues prepping for the day, just in front of me. In fact, this experience has made me learn something new, albeit slightly intimidating and humorous at the same time. You see, we are built with faces on the rear of our cabs. I am startled at first, but then I feel my mouth open agape as uncontainable laughter escapes me and echoes throughout the shed. It's just too funny to comprehend, especially seeing their faces react to my outburst. Well, I certainly feel like I've laughed too much, too hard, as a wheezing, almost painful sounding cough is then heard. Everything inside me aches as my mind continues to process the absurd discovery I have just made. To think I never noticed that before. Though at the same time, it makes me wonder why mine is not joining me in my merriment. Maybe it's because he cannot see. I hear no other laughs to accompany mine, however, only the inaudible mutters of the other engines as they moved out one by one. One engine, however, held back for a little longer than the rest, situated further ahead of me to my left. There I was in the right back corner of the shed, laughing away the last of my tears, when I heard a blunt, brief statement. Originally, I had no idea where it came from. I feel nothing but bemusement. But I think more importantly, I heard clearly what he said, and when the other engine left me in peace, I am able to think about what had just been said. I was not entirely sure at first if it was even addressing me, but it all made sense when I started reiterating the words in my mind. It must have been directed towards me. I look out to see the fading image of an engine similar to my shape, with a number 4 on the top of his squarish cab in a golden font.
You have time. Use it wisely instead of being in ignorance.
The summer months have ended now. After over 2 months being stuck here now, I understand the waiting game's rules. Me sitting here, incredibly bored. The objective for me to start thinking that I'll never be repaired. Well, it may break me down physically, but I will never be broken mentally. I've persevered through longer waiting times. I was nothing but a pile of parts for 5 years without any physical form. Meanwhile, I'm here still in a condition resembling myself. I think of all the tactics in the book to keep this relentless enemy at bay. After considering my options, I just decided to listen to the rain. In fact, it's something I simply can't ignore. I start to worry if the shed might collapse onto me. Puddles line the trackside in a scattered manner, and the ballast's white colour has been darkened to an almost brown, and the rails glisten silver, a bit more profoundly than usual. Amidst my desperate attempt to find new things to look at, I hear a commotion on the platform just a few 200 yards away from the shed. I sense that something must be amiss, maybe even as serious as a derailment. My mind even goes to the possibility of me helping them, before I realize that was physically impossible. Eventually, one of my siblings comes along with something I remember we called the truck. I can see why with how it is really only made up of 2 wagons. Naturally, I never used it, but it seemed to come in useful when I was planted on my side. My mind seems to not be able to stray from my accident. Is it guilt? Surely the guilt would have stopped around this point. I take my focus back to reality, as my sibling pulls away with the truck, having picked up some workmen on the platform, who seem to be holding on in a frantic rush to get out the station. I watch as they leave, confused. The panic conveyed from their frantic rush almost makes it seem as they are facing some hostile force. But even if that is the case, they should face the enemy down with a brave face, showing themselves stronger and mightier. Even if that is not the case, be willing to sacrifice everything to reach their end goal. Fear is a sign of weakness. With these thoughts, I decide to call it a day and close my eyes to the sound of the late morning rain. I sleep under the influence of what feels like a fever dream, the world spinning clockwise over and over again. These nightmares, I presume, are of the crash, and I try to remove myself from the figment's confines. But the dream seems to have a mind of its own, holding me in its grasp as the world keeps spinning. As I continue through the dream, I realize in fact it is showing me a scenario worse than the crash. It is pitch darkness all around me. and I don't feel myself connecting to any surface, even though the speed I am spinning would surely mean a heavy impact. I just keep spinning, almost as if I am floating through space. And that's where it just ends. I don't feel anything aside from a sweltering, nervous heat inside me. I feel different. Like a part of me is missing, left behind in the dream realm. I initially think that this is just my subconscious just playing games with me, an effect of my extreme boredom. But this is a physical sensation. A part of me that I was there before is completely missing. I'm sure of it. I can't find out where it is. Until I feel a slight draft run underneath. And especially vacant space is felt right underneath my cab. The draft continues whistling through. This isn't right. Somewhere inside of me I feel the effort to jolt downwards and feel the steel rails scrape against the bottom of my cab. I feel a slight tinge of pain as I realise that indeed there is something missing. My trailing wheel's gone! But how? Have I been abandoned for so long I am now a target for vandalism? I can't be! What would the manager say? What would His Majesty say? I think of every possibility, but no logical ones come out. I then realised that my shock and awe must have awoke the other engines, until I realised that my throat had run dry. My confusion lasts for only a good few hours whilst the others slept. I thought of every possibility until my mind manages to accept that my parts falling off is a sign of some kind of engine leprosy. Even if that doesn't explain the fact that wheels are nowhere in sight. Relaxing into these admittedly illogical and insane thoughts, I await the tiresome burden of another day of my seemingly eternal retirement. That dream. That same surreal, intoxicating dream. The world still spins as my vision meets the day's light. Though some nights that dream lasts shorter, and I am lucky to wake up during the middle of the night to a slightly nauseous feeling, contrary to the heavy, unbearable feeling of going through that torturous nightmare. Suppose I know now how my crew felt. Anyway, this night I struggle to return to my doze. One of those nights where I cannot go back to sleep. Is it the fear of returning to that dream? Or is it the concept of having done nothing in the last... I don't even know how long it's been, keeping my brain awake with deathly boredom? I suppose it's just one of those things. Though there is something I can't help noticing this night, as my wide-open eyes stare at my surroundings. It was a bright night, a full moon. Add another thought to the reasons I cannot sleep. Its dazzling rays shining through the shadowy shed. In the light, I noticed one of my colleagues seemingly had a new pair of rear wheels, illuminated by the moon's light. They seemed new on him, yet they seemed rusted. Not workshop new in the slightest. Instead, they seem used by an engine who didn't take care of them clearly. That's why I don't think it's me. I took pride in every inch of my metallic being. But my brain cannot help finding it all rather odd. I began thinking as if I haven't done enough time to do that back here. It's too coincidental as far as I'm concerned. My trailing wheels go missing, my colleague gets new ones that don't even look at all that new. I must be going insane. It's probably nothing, but when you have nothing else to do, your brain cannot help but try to comprehend this mysterious coincidence, even unsuccessfully. Honestly, since the choice is either thinking about this or the fear of returning to that ghastly dream, I am unanimous with my decision. 2 months later, or 3... Oh Lord, I'm losing track. Has it really been that long? All I know now, it's bloody freezing. It's snowing for the first time since I have been exiled to the back of the shed. Just wait until I get out of this shed. I'll tackle that mountain with ease despite the treacherous conditions. That thrill from rolling down at high speed or swaying as I go up, making the journey more exciting and fulfilling. That kind of excitement is what I live for. Being on the edge of destiny, up there on the mountain, being caught in the gale on Devil's Back. The feeling I am built to withstand any fierce, teasing gusts that has to throw at me. Invincible! The The best part was that the adventure did end when I reached the summit, or the foot of the mountain. I cannot wait now, or make the wait so much more worth it. What am I saying? Being dangerous is what put me in this situation. If I'm ever lucky enough to be relieved of my limbo here, I should make the most of my second chance. Apologize to everyone, change my way of travel, and overall just live my life to the fullest. But at the same time, in order to live, being dangerous is what makes life such a special gift. The fact you have the choice to be more than a shelled existence, the option of challenge and push yourself to the absolute limits until you have nothing left physically and mentally. That was my mindset when I was in service, and why I was so excited when I first laid eyes on that steep gradient, realizing that I and only a select few others were built to tackle such a climb. I felt privileged, eager to get my buffers dirty, and I took my first train. Everything seemed so beautiful, even if everything seems so alien to me now. The best part is that the adventure didn't end after one run. Every time I reached the summit, I could look forward to going down, and at the foot I could look forward to the exhilaration of the ascent, endlessly experiencing excitement. It never occurred to me that time was limited. And now I'm in a deep depression. Even the bright colours of the green wreaths with the red bows about to be hung by workmen in the shed are faded as I think about how I'll be spending my first Christmas. Sat here, and not just for the season, but for days, months, maybe even years at this point. Yes. I am losing hope. I am losing track of time. I have even started losing my mind. All that's happened since I've been put back here is lost. Even though it's Christmas, I don't see myself receiving anytime soon. So I suppose miracles are reserved for Christmas, and I don't have a very long Christmas list. I just want it to be over now and forever. To never be abandoned like this ever again. To go home despite the fact I never actually left. I miss the feeling I belong. I don't want to be a pariah anymore. I made one mistake. One mistake. I didn't kill anyone. Nobody was hurt when I did what I did. Do I not deserve another chance? Haven't I had enough time to think? Just hear me for once and stop ignoring me, because I'm truly begging for my soul to be let free. Yes, ignore the babbling reek at the back of the shed. He dug his own grave. Maybe I did, but please don't let it end this way. Don't let me suffer for all eternity. I don't even care if I have to suffer a month more, just as long as it ends soon. Frostbite or a blizzard that destroys the shed and everything in it, at least that way I'll have some company in tackling the next life. Because this isn't living as it is. I don't even feel like I'm existing, especially when I only have parts of me. Give me the greatest gift, and that is freedom. From all of this, I am begging anyone who can hear my cries at night or see my absolute sadness in the light of day. Open your eyes to my suffering. After all, it is Christmas. Another accident. Some part of my consciousness does feel sorry, truly it does. From the looks on everyone's faces and the increased pace the workmen and engines go about with means something is terribly, terribly wrong. But then why does the rest of me feel unsympathetic? Honestly, that engine should have been more careful. Surely some kind of common sense could have been used to prevent this. He could have taken care. I mean, we live on a bloody mountain railway, imbecile. Take some initiative for once and you'll inbred it. Alright. A voice inside me is telling me to calm down. A very small voice. Honestly, I don't know where that brainwave came from. Everything about this experience, I don't think there is even a word for it, just this state of existing. I'm expected to consider this as living? And I got this punishment because of a single accident. No money to mend me. If that was the case, then how come I'm stuck here with no one to talk to? No one to feel the empathy I so rightfully deserve? Now a nameless, unimportant soul has a serious accident. It's the end of the world all of a sudden. Well, there's only one engine whose world is getting smaller and smaller until nothing is left. Parts have been stolen from me for Godred's sake. My boiler completely leaked of steam, exposed to the cold, draughty shed that now my dome wasn't there to cage it. I don't even remember when it happened. Just one morning I felt the chill of a lengthy, bitter winter more than I did the previous night. Maybe that is what is making my heart turn colder. But what else can I feel other than frustration, fright, and hopelessness? Yet my colleagues remain distant, seemingly having forgotten me. But oh no, one of our friends has had a serious accident. Let us triumphantly go and off to his rescue. Don't worry, Godred, we'll just leave you to rust just a little bit longer. They return with the damaged engine by lorry. I scowl looking out from the shed window, seeing their hurt faces as they look at his damaged cabin. My growl seems to echo the shed as a vent of a lifetime escaped my tired, extremely pale lips. Just end it, okay? Just end it right now! His Majesty would blush at the tidal wave of profanity that I scream. I flood the shed with the countless tears I feel like shedding if I had any to cry within me. As my rage roars throughout the shed and out into the cruel, disgusting world, my vision blurs and my hearing muffles. All I hear is gibberish. All I feel is my mouth forcing itself wide open as I feel my throat scratch and lurch inside, livid at everything. Yes, everything. All I can form are words of hate and anger. I even feel myself vibrate in the red mist. I see the fading images of my own brethren moving quickly as if frightened by my outbursts. I want it to continue forever. Then I might be able to communicate how I truly feel. My sentences start to shorten as exhaustion takes hold of me. My eyes feel ready to burst right out of my sockets, and every piece left in my frail body feels twisted and weak. I feel my voice go hoarse, though I continue to spread the hate until I have gone completely mute. My cab is gone now. Once more, I have no idea how it happened. Though I suppose it means my only company in my other face is no longer with me. I am now truly alone, even with the supposed company of 4 other engines. If they even get a single glance at me, they turn away with a pained expression. Yes, I may look physically different, but I cannot be that difficult for you to lay your eyes on! But maybe it's more than that. They see me as a reminder of what shouldn't happen to them. I have become a symbol of fear. The fear of making even one mistake and being treated as a pariah, getting smaller physically and mentally by the minute. Ever since my little outburst, I have not said a word. Only my thoughts are my ambience now. The rest is the silence of isolation. Aside from the slight tinge of unbearable pain I get now and again, I never know when it's coming. But when it happens, it feels like every pain I've ever felt in my life has come rushing to me all at once. I still have that dream, in case you are wondering. Except it happens faster and faster each time, and I feel the sickening sensation brought with it. More each and every time I close my eyes. I can even still see it now with my eyes open, playing in front of me like nothing visual I've ever seen before. The periods where it doesn't happen, I'm either waiting for it to have, again, or having one of those surges of crippling pain that put my mind into overdrive. I never truly get to rest. But yes, anyways, how are you? A better situation than I'm in, I hope. Oh, that's good to hear. Yes, well, have you heard the news that Mr. Toadstool has a new cat? Yes, it's quite an amusing thing to look at, isn't it? I'm great with cats. I actually ran one over once. Blood was everywhere. I saw a little girl cry over that dead cat, and I was crying also. It was different, to be sure. But actually, let me tell you a funny thing that happened to me when I was last out on the rails. I tell you, it's just a pain. It's like, get out of me!
Hello?
I awake to the sudden sound of a voice. A voice. Another voice. A voice that's not in my head. An actual voice of a living, breathing engine. One of my own, as a matter of fact. Damaged and in disrepair. I must have missed out on there being another accident. Though something is off about him. He seems lower than me. So much so I have to look down onto his eyes, awkwardly shifting from side to side, as we continue to embellishing in each other's presence in deafening silence.
It seems you've been living back here a lot longer than me.
He seems to chuckle at this, as if my exile has been anything to laugh at. I ignored the question and looked at the engine's nameplate. Shane Dooney? Is that even English? Must be Sudrian.
It's been funny not having you around, always speaking of your automatic brakes and how you don't need much more than that to be safe. When quite clearly every wise engine knows you always need some common sense, especially when you're working on a mountain of all places.
I can almost feel the salt rubbed into my wounded pride. I try to pretend not to hear, but it seems he notices my dejected expression and turns his gaze away apologetically.
Oh, sorry, old sport. You probably don't want to be reminded. It must have been quite the painful experience.
He said, seemingly looking at the scratches and dents on my face and side tanks.
Well, so was my accident, if it makes you feel any better.
He motioned for me to look down at his wheels. What should be wheels? They are almost shattered, the rack beneath him hanging to his side. He was only more of a piece of scrap metal than anything else. I cannot see how he could possibly be mended. Part of me thinks good. I have a friend back here to share the eternal weight with. Someone also complained about how unjust the situation is. To be driven insane by the monotony of sitting around and doing nothing for what should at least be a year now. Someone who knows what it'll feel like to truly suffer.
Shane Dooney?
Another voice is heard, this time accompanied by the shifting and ballast under the weight of human footsteps. The voice was strong and authoritative, seemingly owned by the smartly dressed man in a black coat and a bowler hat. My mind clocked that this was our manager. He walked straight past me, almost forcing his head away from me. He swallows and begins to speak to the occupant of the space next to me.
As you know, we are short of sufficient funds for a complete overhaul. However, I have pulled some strings and I've found a new set of wheels for you within a very short time. But unfortunately, there is only one set available. The wheels are damaged beyond repair, but the rack is still in place, and the frame of the undercarriage is still intact. You'll be in a condition enough to work until we can afford a complete overhaul for you.
Yes, sir.
I cannot believe my non-existent ears. Here he is, seemingly damaged beyond repair, and he gets privileged over a permanently physical and integral asset to the railway. I'm the number one, for heaven's sake! I'm sure they won't miss number 5! But one thing that bothers me more is that mysterious factory that has been able to gather together a set of wheels in close proximity to here. The manager walks away as I look at him in disgust. His shoulders shrugged almost as if in fear. He hops in and out of the sleepers as if he wanted to get out of that area, the shed, as soon as possible. He trips and lets out a gasp in fright, and he picks himself back up.
Well, it seems I won't be here too long then. Sorry, old boy. Though we should make the most of the time we have left. So, what have you done to pass the time?
He has the audacity to ask that question. What does he think happens back here? Yes, secretly when no one is looking, I can get out of this shell of a body and live a completely normal life. He doesn't really know what it's like back here. I don't think anyone would. Part of me doesn't even know who I am anymore. I say part of me, because I do have one thing that at least gives me a resemblance of identity. Something that is a rarity, but is essential if one wants to become a proper engine. Why do I feel like it's talk like that has gotten me here? But with such a prestigious name like mine, I don't think any of you can blame me for showing pride in having one. Besides, if you are named after a king, well, that is an honor that cannot be ignored. With that being said, such a designation requires responsibility to uphold. To prove yourself worthy, and not a disgrace to the original owner of the name. To represent what he represented in life. To forever associate his majesty with the courage and gallantry his grand life led. But that train left the station the minute I was put back here. This is Godred, not the pioneering ruler that paved the way of the Sodor Renaissance. Instead, a foolish, arrogant and rude engine that caused his own fate because simply he was an adrenaline junkie. But that fuels my desire to get out of here even more, to redeem myself, to be the engine that Godred would have wanted me to be. No more wasted chances. I would be strong, bold but not stupidly so, a leader for the other engines, a role model for other younger engines, to follow instead of some bedtime story about the bad Godred that fell down a hill and broke his crown as well as his pride and sanity. A warning for others. No, that's not what I want. That's not what anyone wants nor deserves. Not even Godred's great rival, the Earl Sigurd of Orkney. I want to be out there to help my comrades. I will not throw away that second chance with my friends. Whose wheels am I trying to pull here? I just want to be out there, anywhere. I don't even care if I'm on this railway anymore. Just out. I know I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, but you cannot comprehend the torture it is being back here. Seeing the dappled colours of the sun fading over the mountain, shining light onto the dust particles that swirl around my face, which I breathe in and swallow along with the millions of other specks I have consumed. I am Napoleon, and this is my island of exile, for me to rust for all eternity, in this very spot, for me to settle down into sleep time and time again, with nothing to wake up for. Just hoping that this time I close my eyes, I won't have to suffer the pain of opening them once more. I awake in the middle of the night again, feeling cold as the wind brushes against my damaged body. However, it's a different sort of cold now, a much more biting cold which I am numb to as a result of my shattered spirit, but felt nonetheless, as gusts pelted my flapping metal frames. I feel myself rock on a hard wooden surface beneath me. I look down in horror, but also with rolling eyes as I see yet again another piece of me is missing. My wheels this time. Just taken. Like the last time, right after Shane Dooney came in needing a whole new set of wheels. I can't point any fingers, but... Oh, what am I saying? Of course that's what happened! That's what's been happening this whole time! My parts have been stolen, and I've been cannibalized for the benefit of my own siblings! The hate I feel inside bores my cold exterior over, as the feeling of the bitter wind rushing past fades into the red mist. I just want to scream and shout my frustrations aloud, let the world know what I think of those buffers for doing this to me. Only to instead close my eyes as frustration turns into tiredness and dejection. at the realization that there is nothing I can do. They may have made the wrong decision, but it's their decision. I have no say. Even if it is my body. All this time I thought I was more to them than just some asset. That one is more than just a number, but a symbol to represent. In some ways I thought I was more than the railway. But I suppose when it comes to business, efficiency is all that matters, not what helps provide it. But if that's the case, why do other engines have priority over me? Why are my parts being used? If anything, my parts would be the least usable, considering I had my... Oh my. It's been so long since I have thought about that. My accident that put me here. How long has it been now? I've stopped having that dream now. I have stopped feeling pain. In fact, all I feel is emptiness, which is apt for someone whose parts are being reused for the sake of his siblings. At least I still have a sense of humour, even if I find myself laughing at the rotting corpse of a spider in its own web in one of the corners of the shed. If I'm lucky, I hear it exhale its last breath with a hoarse sigh as life escapes him with a twitch. It's these thoughts I could imagine being sent to an asylum for. I will admit, I am damaged beyond repair. Despite some part of my weakening subconscious still believing that I would still have this second chance, that I will return to the front lines of service, that I will be really useful. You don't know how depressing those thoughts get sometimes, living in a fantasy forever to not be real. But it would mean so much to me that I simply cannot think of anything else. It's all I hope for, and I personally don't think it's too much to ask. Godred, look at yourself. You're never going to return from the start. Don't try and fight this battle with yourself. You'll never win. Godred never lost. He never faced an obstacle too difficult for him to face. But then Godred was a human and didn't have to face this. As my inner conflict ravages my brain, I think I start to hear footsteps head in my direction. I see 5 men dressed in work overalls coming towards me, joking around loudly enough to be heard above my brain's internal battle. I see tools in their hands. I roll my eyes at this. Here we go again, and this time I'll actually be awake for it.
Alright lads, so it's the side tanks we're after, right? Aye, Culdee'll be buzzing.
Something about nude side tanks for Culdee. That name, from hearsay, he might as well be the number one. Culdee is the pride of the line, or Culdee is named after the mountain, so he must be important. Certainly more so than the other engine who fell down a mountain and disgraced the original ruler of Sodor. He was always special. Something for years I thought I was because of my name alone. But no. It's the engine you are apparently that matters more. I say this with a sarcastic tone, but that is what got me back here admittedly. Not living up to the name. Now payment has caught up to me, the price my side tanks. I glance at them one final time, dented and scratched, but still somewhat resembling side tanks. They are difficult things to break after all. I glance along them before a glimmer of gold catches my eye. Nameplate. Wait. Did it? No, not my... But if they have to remove my side tanks, then they have to move my... I feel a cold, gloved hand touch my buffer beam. Then a sound of footsteps moving around to the back of my sides. Burly scoundrels with sharp equipment.
Alrighty, so Nameplate's got to go first. Then we get to work on this one. Get the wrench, Ted.
Now what will happen? My nameplate is the only semblance of identity I have and have had for a very long time. I wonder to myself, will it hurt? Will things ever be the same once it's removed? Will I ever open my eyes again as I shut my eyelids from the inky blank sky, only to see even more blackness? I feel my irises tense as a silent gulp escapes my dry throat. I am preparing. What for, I cannot say. Only something deep, deep inside tells me that, as a man chips away at my nameplate, that these will be the final thoughts I will ever think as my dream passes by me once more, sped up and on loop. And all I hear are my internal screams, silent as they are. It is strange how history repeats itself. An engine very similar to me once, named after some landlord. She one day a few years ago came down the mountain too fast. She derailed and rolled, cab over wheels, down the mountain several times before reaching the bottom. She was scrapped afterwards, completely beyond repair. Only her pistons, wheels and frame still leaving her with some resemblance of an engine. Her death was painful, but it was quick. Now my suffering endures, not just in the pain, but just my existence disgraced the name of whom I used to carry. That nameplate now face up in front of me. Bent golden letters scraped out to reveal lifeless steel. That nameplate, lying in front of me, is my legacy, and will be forevermore by those that had the displeasure of knowing me. Sibling, Culdee, Shanedooney, all still of use in the end. I guess I can take solace in that. Culdee would be a great engine. Shanedooney would be fine using my wheels. I hope this railway lasts forever.
It was that coach, sir.
Enough with the tales. You have damaged yourself, and you have upset the passengers with your reckless behavior. And now you are not taking responsibility for it?
But, sir...
That is enough! You will stay in the shed until we have decided what to do with you. I don't know about you, Lord Harry, but I'd start wising up. Unless you want to end up like Godred.
Ha! What does the king have anything to do with what happened?
Let me explain.
Ha! Here I am at the back of the shed for an accident that was completely not my fault. Bored and alone with not a soul to converse with. Plus, Culdee's story is just ridiculous. An engine put at the back of the shed and then has his parts cannibalized to mend the other engines. Firstly, that is just cruel. And secondly, well, I mean, it just cannot be true. This is not denial, this is fact. Besides, it would have been more economical just to scrap him. Besides, he would have been terribly bored. I mean, I've only been sitting here for 1 day, and already I'm bored out of my skull. He apparently stayed there for about 2 years. That would drive me balmy. Culdee is trying to scare me. You don't scare me. If a 4,000-foot-tall climb can't scare me. But what if it does come true? What if I'm forgotten? What if I cannot change my ways? No! No, number 6, you are better than this! Even if you don't have a name now. You'll be out again in no time. Yes. No time. No time at all. Yes. Quite. Well, it does get rather dusty back here. Can't see how I've never noticed that before. Silly! Of course you haven't! You've had other things to focus on. Hang on. Who goes there? Just, why does my head hurt? Why is something speaking to me? Ah! What's wrong with me? Listen, whoever you are. I don't understand how you are doing this, but be gone! Wait, what are you doing? What are you trying to tell me? What do you want? Look, I don't know what you are. Just stop! I will be a good engine, just let me go! Just stop! Stop right now! What are you? I won't end up like you! Never! Just get out! Just stop! Just stop!